Hello everyone. The story I want to share with you today takes place in California, USA. Known for its powerful and diverse economy, California stands as a hub for technology, entertainment, and culture. Cities like Los Angeles and San Francisco, both in California, are bustling urban centers famous around the globe. Our main character is Jaycee Dugard. She was born on May 3, 1980. Jaycee was a smart and beautiful young girl who lived with her mother, Terry Probyn, and her stepfather, Carl Probyn. Her life was full of happiness. Her mom and stepdad loved her dearly. At first, the family lived in Arcadia, a city near Los Angeles, but later her parents sought a safer community for their children. So, they moved to South Lake Tahoe, a quiet mountain town about 430 miles north, nestled near the stunning Lake Tahoe. It was June 10, 1991, a Monday morning at the start of the week. That day, Terry Probyn, who worked as a typesetter at a printing shop, had gone to work early. Jaycee, just 11 years old, put on simple clothes and walked alone from her home to the school bus stop. Halfway there, a gray car rolled up, blocking her path, and the driver lowered the window. She thought he might just need directions, so she stepped closer. But suddenly, the man inside, Phillip Garrido, hit her with a stun gun, leaving her stunned and helpless. A woman, Nancy Garrido, jumped out, grabbed Jaycee and pulled her into the car before speeding away. The spot wasn't far from her house. By pure chance, her stepdad, Carl Probyn, saw it all from their garage. He rushed out, chasing after the car on his bicycle, but it was too late. Not only could he not catch up, but he couldn't even make out the license plate, just that there were two people inside, one of them a woman. Frantic, he raced back and called the police immediately. The American police reacted fast. Within hours, local media flooded the airwaves with news of the abduction, pleading for the public's help to save the little girl as soon as possible. Law enforcement launched a huge search effort, dozens of officers, helicopters circling above, and trained dogs sniffing for clues. Volunteers poured in too, joining the desperate hunt. But sadly, no real leads turned up. Based on what her classmates and Carl described, police sketched the suspects, but they'd been too far away for the portraits to be reliable. A few days later, tens of thousands of flyers and posters were sent to businesses across the United States. Since pink was Jaycee's favorite color, South Lake Tahoe became covered in pink ribbons, a constant reminder of her disappearance and a show of the community's support for her family. Terry worked tirelessly with neighbors and volunteers to spread the word and raise money. T-shirts, sports jackets, and missing person posters with Jaycee's face went everywhere. A singer even wrote a special song for her. The case grabbed attention across America. It even appeared on America's Most Wanted, a famous TV show that spotlighted unsolved crimes. But no matter how hard everyone tried, Jaycee stayed lost. In their despair, police started wondering if the culprit might be someone she knew. Their first suspect was Carl Probyn. He'd seen it happen after all. If he'd planned it, it'd explain why she couldn't be found. They brought him to the station, questioned him, and ran a lie detector test. Nothing suspicious came up, so they crossed him off the list. Next, they turned to her biological father, Ken Slayton. Could he have taken her to force her to live with him? But after digging, they learned Ken didn't even know he had a daughter. He and Terry had dated years ago, split up, and she'd never told him about the pregnancy. He was cleared too. With no solid suspects, the investigation hit a wall. As time dragged on, the case faded from the headlines. Rumors swirled that Jaycee might have been dumped in some remote wilderness, no longer alive. Despite what people thought, Terry refused to give up. She insisted her daughter was out there. Over 1 million flyers were handed out, and experts used technology to age her photo, guessing what she'd look like grown up. Yet Jaycee seemed to have vanished from the earth without a trace. So where did she really go? What terrible things did she endure? Let's step back to that fateful day. June 10, 1991. That morning, after being dragged into the car, Jaycee dimly heard the man and woman talking. "Oh my God, we really got her and got away. I can't believe it." When she fully woke up, she was about 110 miles from home in a whole new world. She was locked in a rundown shed in Antioch, California. Around it were torn tents wrapped in plastic sheets, stuffed with old junk and garbage. At first glance, it looked like a forgotten backyard no one bothered with. The people who brought her there were Phillip Garrido and his wife Nancy Garrido, a twisted pair. Phillip had a criminal past. Born in California in 1951, he finished high school and at 21 attacked a 14-year-old girl, assaulting her. He was arrested, but the girl's family, wanting to protect her reputation, didn't let her testify. That let Phillip slip free. Later, he married, but during that marriage he kept attacking his wife until she demanded a divorce. He tried to force her to stay, but she turned to the law and they split for good. Then, in 1976, at 25, Phillip kidnapped a 25-year-old woman named Catherine Calloway. Catherine was held in a warehouse for 5 weeks, suffering abuse. A patrolling officer noticed a car parked oddly by the warehouse door. Curious, he checked inside, and that blew the case open. In court, Catherine's testimony left Phillip defenseless. He couldn't talk his way out. He was sentenced to 50 years in prison. Strangely, while he was locked up, Nancy started visiting him often. She claimed he was her uncle, but soon they grew close. On October 5, 1981, in a wild turn, Nancy and Phillip married inside the prison. Then, on August 26, 1988, after 11 years behind bars, Phillip was paroled for good behavior and fitted with an ankle monitor. Local prosecutors were supposed to check on him regularly to stop him from reoffending. But he wasn't sorry. He wanted to keep breaking the law. His wife, who seemed unstable herself, didn't try to stop him. Instead, she agreed to join in. So the couple drove around cities together, and by chance they spotted Jaycee walking alone. They didn't hesitate to strike, locking her in a soundproof shed in their Antioch backyard, a recording studio Phillip had built himself. No matter how loud she screamed, no one would hear. Next, he handcuffed her and kept her in awful conditions, threatening her. "Don't shout or leave this shed. Your parents don't want you. You're homeless now. There are big guard dogs outside. If you try to escape, they'll get you." For the first week, Jaycee stayed chained up, with Phillip as her only contact. He'd occasionally bring her some fast food and talk to her. He gave her a bucket to use as a toilet. He subjected her to ongoing abuse for years. For the next 3 years, he banned her from reading or writing, even saying her own name. They forced her to go by Alisa. Later, Phillip brought in a small TV, but she could only watch shopping channels, completely unaware that people were searching for her. On April 3, 1994, Phillip surprised her with some cooked food, the first decent meal she'd had beyond cheap scraps since being taken. He'd changed his tune because she was pregnant with his child. She was only 13. Phillip wouldn't take her to a hospital. Instead, he found bits of info and taught her what she needed to give birth. On August 18, 1994, Jaycee had her first daughter. For the first time in years, she smiled. She finally had someone with her. She cared for her baby well, using tricks she'd picked up from the TV. In 1997, Jaycee had a second daughter. To make room for the growing kids, Phillip built a bigger tent in the backyard. Jaycee was allowed out of the shed to tend to them there. Though she'd given birth to both girls, Phillip made them call Nancy Mom to please his wife, while Jaycee played the big sister. He figured it was the only way to keep the kids from raising red flags. And it worked. Outsiders assumed the girls were Nancy's and never suspected a thing. By 2009, 18 years had passed since Jaycee was taken. Her mom, Terry, had never stopped looking. Then, at last, a turning point came. On August 24, 2009, Phillip walked onto the UC Berkeley campus with Jaycee's 2 daughters. He left a paper rambling about religion and gender, saying he'd seen the error of his ways and wouldn't sin anymore, that he could guide others to do the same. He even brought the girls to the university grounds, asking to teach about religion. Campus police got wind of it. He met Lisa Campbell, a department head, who found him odd. The girls he'd brought, pale, quiet, and overly obedient, set off alarm bells. Sensing trouble, Lisa had him sign some forms and come back the next day. Behind his back, she asked a cop to check him out. The investigation revealed Phillip's long criminal record. When he returned the next afternoon, August 25th, with the girls, they looked like they'd barely seen sunlight. Lisa called his parole officer, who panicked. Given Phillip's past, he wasn't allowed near minors. Officers went to his Antioch home, but only found Nancy and his old mother there. No girls. Phillip said they were neighbors' kids and their parents had let him take them to the school. The cops told him to bring the kids and their parents to the parole office to explain. The next day, August 26, 2009, Phillip showed up at the parole office with the 2 girls. He claimed they were relatives and daughters of Alisa. Jaycee backed him up, saying she was Alisa, that Phillip was a good man who treated her and the kids well. The girls chimed in, agreeing Phillip was great to them and their mum. It seemed convincing. Phillip had coached them the day before. But when the investigators pushed for details to verify her identity, cracks appeared. They separated Jaycee and the girls to dig deeper. Under pressure to give specifics, Jaycee grew defensive and upset. More police were called in to sort it out. Finally, facing them, Jaycee found her courage. "My name's Jaycee. 18 years ago, Phillip and Nancy kidnapped me and held me in their backyard. I couldn't get away." The cops were stunned. They arrested Phillip and Nancy on the spot. When Terry got the police call, her emotions burst. She couldn't believe she'd see her daughter again after 18 years. They reunited, Jaycee hugging her mom and sobbing. Luckily, Jaycee and her daughters were in good health. Carl Probin was thrilled to see her too. Though police had ruled him out early, years of public suspicion had worn him down heavily. Police searched the Antioch spot where Jaycee had been held. The sight shocked them. Conditions were beyond awful. 2 flimsy tents in a yard full of trash and junk next to the gray car Phillip had used to grab her. The shed she'd lived in was a wreck. It was unthinkable she'd spent 18 years there raising 2 daughters alone. Phillip was hit with 29 charges. He denied them at first, but the evidence was overwhelming. He caved. On June 2, 2011, under California law, Phillip got 431 years to life in prison. Nancy got 36 years to life. But it wasn't over. Plenty of others had a hand in this tragedy. Phillip, a convicted felon, was under government watch after parole. Records say parole officers visited his home 60 times since Jaycee was taken, but they never checked the backyard. His place was just a 2-hour drive from hers, and his 1976 crime near South Lake Tahoe should have put him on the radar. Too many clues slipped through. In 2002, the fire department got a call that a kid in Phillip's family was hurt swimming. He had no kids, but no one followed up with parole. In 2006, neighbors called police saying they saw kids in his backyard. An officer met Phillip, chatted for 30 minutes and left, no search. You could say this was partly the police and authorities' negligence and carelessness. Jaycee lived in hell for 18 years because of it. So in July 2010, California paid Jaycee $20 million for their screw-ups. The local police chief issued a public apology. Her family sued the U.S. government too, pointing out Phillip had drunk and used drugs on parole, violations that should have sent him back to jail. If they'd enforced it, Jaycee wouldn't have been taken. That lawsuit was thrown out by a U.S. court. In 2010, Jaycee started the Jaycee Foundation to support families like hers, people scarred by deep trauma. In July 2011, she published a memoir based on her experience. It's sad and moving to think what 18 long years in captivity meant for an 11-year-old girl like Jaycee. The control and brainwashing over that time made Jaycee unable to trust outsiders or easily reveal who she really was. Coming back to her family was rough, but with their help and kindness, she soon stepped out of the shadows and found happiness with them. In July 2016, Jaycee released her second book, Freedom, My Book of Firsts. In it, she mostly talks about her life after rescue, how she healed and rejoined the world. She hopes it can help other survivors who've been through similar nightmares. Here at Mysterious Cases, we believe each of us holds the key to our own happiness, no matter how dark the journey gets. That's all for today's video. If you were touched by Jaycee's story, please give it a like, hit that subscribe button to join us for more gripping tales, and share this video with anyone who loves a mystery. We'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.